All right, folks, this is Rebel Rouse and Rich Bergeron.
It is the Tornado Tony Petticoat.
And Psychic Tom Paget with a crystal ball ready to make predictions.
Well, Tom, I'll make a deal with you. You do the MMA predictions of this week, and I'll do the fight prediction for this week.
Sounds like the plan.
What about the MMA versus boxing prediction?
I predict if it happens, it's going to make a lot of money.
Yeah, and you got another big one, big heavyweight in the mix now, even though he's not really pointing to the Mayweather-McGregor card. But Bobby Lashley, guy that you might know from wrestling circles more than MMA circles there, Tony. He wants to be the Bo Jackson of combat sports for real, and end up wants to fight the best of British boxing, even Anthony Joshua, which could be dangerous.
I'm going to give you a trivia question about Bobby Lashley. You ready for this? You guys can use this. In 2007, it's going to be 10 years. 10 years ago at WrestleMania, they did a hair versus hair match. Bobby Lashley did not put his hair on the line because he had none. But there was two guys. They bet hair versus hair, and they each put their wrestler up. Okay, Vince McMahon, he put up a Samoan wrestler called Umaga, who passed away a few years ago. And another celebrity put up Bobby Lashley as his representative.
Right, you were kind of slowing down there. Say that again?
Okay, back in 2007, they did a hair versus hair match. So, Vince McMahon, he put up his hair against another celebrity. And Vince McMahon's wrestler to represent him was a Samoan wrestler named Umaga. Eddie Fatu, who passed away a couple years ago. Who was the other celebrity that was represented by Bobby Lashley?
Donald Trump.
Exactly.
I do remember that.
And Lashley won, and they shaved Vince McMahon's head.
Nice.
Donald Trump, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and Bobby Lashley shaved Vince McMahon's head.
Well, let's just hope Donald Trump doesn't throw Khabib Nurmagomedov out of the country before his fight this weekend.
I think he's on the safe. He's on the safe list.
He is a Muslim, you know.
Well,
so.
Tony, bringing that up now. You got the Three Stooges and me coming out now. Back to that whole mythical match with Biden.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Bobby Lashley is a big boy, to say the least. So, they're always talking about how the best heavyweights are in the wrong sports in the United States. So, I think it could be trouble. But, the other thing that you have to consider is something Angelo Dundee used to talk a lot about, is that weightlifting and bulk, like you have in wrestling, pro wrestling especially, is not very good for reach. It's kind of like why they make fun of guys who, when they say, "Where's the beach?" They get the weird point because they're flexing. It shortens your reach if you've got too many muscles like that, and not very good for translation to boxing. So we'll
actually have this conversation tonight at the gym. Takes a snap off your punches, and it forces you to wear down.
Right. So,
well, and you remember too that football players and weightlifters a lot of times just don't train in boxing. I mean, it's really going to be. I mean, I just can't imagine them. You don't see a lot of boxers going into MMA. So I don't know why these MMA guys all of a sudden think they can box at the world class level.
I mean, you had a few years ago, you had a few fighters that tried the MMA. Probably the most notable was James Toney in that disaster. And I even said, James Toney's going to have no chance because he's a guy that likes to fight at a real slow pace, fight in close, and, counterpunch off the ropes. He's not going to have that advantage in MMA because the guy's just going to take him down real quick. And that's exactly what happened.
Exactly.
How much money would you pay to see Conor McGregor flip out on Floyd and put him in the rear naked?
Top tier fighters.
But how much money would you pay for Conor McGregor to go nuts and kick Floyd in the head or choke him out? Get disqualified.
That's what would happen. James Toney would in an MMA environment, just because he's going to try to use his legs, stay on the outside, use angles. But eventually...
I'm not talking about MMA, Tony, though. I'm talking about boxing. If McGregor just decides, I'm going to break the rules, I don't give a shit. I'm mad.
Well, you know what? And and like I said, we talked about that last week. Yeah. I said, because Floyd is the one that's going to run the show. Let's be dead honest here. So a clause is going to get put in that contract that if McGregor tries something like that, and in order to quote unquote save face and maybe say lay Mayweather out with like a kick or something like that, they're going to put a clause in there that he's going to forfeit his pay.
Yeah, I hope so, but I've had a lot of anti-Floyd people out there would love to see him get fouled, and there's a potential he just might foul just to see if how much it's going to take to have a point taken away before he gets disqualified. So we may see that, but there's a lot of ways you can foul and get away with it, but I don't know. I'm going to think.
Well, there's ways you can foul and get away with it, and you have some fighters that were so subtle at it they would almost never get warned.
Jesse Bond.
Like Bernard Hopkins.
Jesse Bond.
Hopkins, for about 1,000 years, it looked like, he would be fighting in close, and he would kind of, clinch the guy with his one arm. The referee would be on that side, and he'd start banging him around the hips and the kidneys and all that with the right arm, and right out of the referee's line of sight. He would never get caught on it. You had other guys that, knew how to use their shoulders in there, knew how to use their elbows in there. I had a trainer one time was teaching me ways to break the rules with making it look like it was the other guy's fault.
Yeah. And how about that Penn State guy, Tony?
Oh, Jesse Bond?
Yes.
Human octopus?
You're right. I almost went off on him, Conor McGregor style, when we fought down there. And actually, I think it was in Kentucky. Or Kentucky was there at the same event, but it was somewhere else. But yeah, I was getting pissed with him, and I even mouthed off to the ref for the first time in a boxing match because he wasn't calling his elbows. But yeah, it's possible.
He'd hold and he would grapple, and then and a lot of times if you started getting to him pretty good, he wanted to take a knee, he would go into a clinch, and then out of the clinch he would drop down to his knees, so it looked like it was the force of the wrestling that put him down, as not counted as a knockdown, but that way he would get his breather.
What a punk. Anyway, that's our MMA versus boxing discussion for the week. We got a lot of boxing and mixed martial arts to talk about. We got two big events coming up this weekend. Tomorrow night, Bellator is going to have the new featherweights, female featherweights, fighting for a title. It's their inaugural featherweight title bout. We have obviously some boxing coming up this weekend, but we had the big heavyweights fighting last weekend. Last Saturday, I believe it was, and I watched it. I got to watch it because I was off watching Bronson all weekend, so had some time off to sit down and watch the fights and boxing matches. And I didn't see the Brazil fight, but I saw the other two, and the rest going into the night. I didn't even stick around for the final fight, Caleb Plant's decision. I pretty much knew he was going to get a unanimous decision there, so I went to bed before I even saw the decision, but saw all that fight. Gerald Washington was looking like he had the blueprint to win that fight there for a little while. And then Deontay Wilder just said, hey, remember I got that knockout punch that people heard about? Wham! And you know what pissed me off more than anything about that stupid-ass Premier Boxing Champions friggin' production team? Did you ever see a replay of the actual punches that knocked Washington out?
I didn't get a chance to see the fight. I was in Lock Haven.
Well, I'll tell you, Tony, they showed the first knockdown like it was the last. And they showed it 17 motherfucking times. And never showed the final punches that actually ended the fight. I have never seen a production crew do that. It's like, are you guys retarded? Did you forget there was the rest of the fight there that we might want to watch? And it was like, that even when they did after the post fight show, they played only that clip because it was clean, crisp punching and everything like that. But if you watched how the fight actually ended, it's kind of like snubbing the fact that this guy got up after that, number one, and went out on his feet. He did not go down again. He was standing up when they stopped that fight. So it's kind of like taking away from the warrior spirit of Washington. At the same time, it's not really showing you the whole fight. So thumbs down to PBC on Fox production team for fucking that one up.
Yeah, that was bad. Now, Rich, do you think this was a matter of Wilder being exposed, or do you think this is really going to be what he needed to come from behind for the first time in his career? What do you think?
Well, I think that hands-down defense is what really, caused him all the problems in this one. And I don't know whether it was just overconfidence or adjustments that he had to make, but he just seemed like he was in a different world for most of the fight until he got that, stunning couple punches together. I think, he's got the talent and everything like that, but he throws strategy out the window when he gets in trouble. And he doesn't use his reach, number one. He was letting Washington, who had the shorter reach, get in close, land good punches. And then, number one, the one thing I noticed more than anything else is that when Washington was winning that fight, he was never moving backwards. Always moving forwards, always establishing that wide open stance where he was pushing Deontay around the ring. And it really took Deontay saying, wait a second, I can take Washington's worst punches and just wade in there and throw back. But for a while he was just taking so many good jabs and, getting moved back that he didn't feel like he could hang with the guy. And then all of a sudden he lands a few good shots, starts using his own jab and back into the fight and wins the fight. So I think, he would just benefit from more technical boxing, defense, and using the jab. He's got that huge reach, and you have to work off the jab. Like one of the best jabs for light heavyweight or heavyweight I've ever seen is Chad Dawson in his glory days when he was really, really good. But I don't know, not so much today. But back when he was working with our boy John Scully, he had a crazy jab, and I think a lot of heavyweights like Deontay Wilder would be just unstoppable, kind of like Klitschko was with that, ability to throw a jab, not only quickly but with a lot of power. When you're not trying to just keep the guy off you, when you really want to starch him, you throw that power jab in there instead of the quick jab. Looks the same, but does not feel the same when it lands. So he needs, I think, just needs a little bit of refinement, really, and he should be fine. But definitely he did not look too spectacular the other night until the final round. But we had some fights over in Norway as well. I remember talking about this last week, the big female fight, and there was no surprise. Cecilia Brækhus stays undefeated, keeps all her 19 titles, 5 titles, and Clara Svensson takes the loss in that one at welterweight. That was the main event. And then we had Thomas Adamek actually beat 25-14, different Thomas Adamek than you might be thinking of. Same spelling, but he's 25-14-2, and he actually beat a guy named Tim Robin Lehaug, who was 16-2, so might be considered an upset, I don't know. And as well as the Wilder fight, we had some more to talk about. Let's see. We also had fights at Pechanga Resort and Casino out in California, Temecula, California. The main event there was Justin DeLoach getting the USBA Super Welterweight title over Christopher Pearson. 14-1. Deloach was 16-1 going into that one. That was a knockout win for Deloach. And we're not talking about phonetic alphabets here, but Oscar Bravo won his fight. Actually lost his fight against Saul Rodriguez. Oscar Bravo goes to 22-6. Saul Rodriguez is still undefeated, 20-0-1. And Andrew Tabiti at cruiserweight stayed undefeated. Got the NABF cruiserweight title over Qantas Graves, who was also undefeated going in. That was an RTD. RTD. Let's see what else we got. That was Friday night, I guess. So let's go to Saturday.
Oh, Rich, while you're looking, did you see the whole Caleb Plant fight?
I did, and I was very impressed, except for, like I mentioned in the analysis of the fight last week with Gavin Tucker from Nova Scotia. You always have to have at least one hand up by the face, and I did notice that Caleb Plant was taking a lot of damage to one side of his face, and everything else was beautiful, but he just could not keep that, I forget it was the left hand or the right hand, but he just could not keep that side of his face protected. And some people can do that with one hand, other people rely on two, especially in boxing. It's a lot easier with two if you can get used to that style. But so many people are trying to do something a little bit different, keep one hand low, do a lot of up jabbing. And Caleb Plant is one of those guys that he's probably going to end up paying for it if he goes up against somebody a little bit more skilled in the future.
Yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned about different because, as you know, he's relocated to Las Vegas.
Yep.
And I guess he's training in different gyms. And I get the feeling he's kind of, it almost seemed like a sparring session because he dropped the guy in the first round. And it almost seemed like every round he was trying something a little different.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'd say, well, work on your infighting, or work on your movement, or work on slipping, or so. I would like to see him a little more aggressive. I kind of get the feeling he may have been able to end that thing if he'd have stepped on the accelerator a little more. But you know, maybe he just felt he needed the workout, and that's kind of my take on it. Did you see some of that?
Yeah, he just. It was almost like he just gave the guy way too much respect, and just you know, just kind of tried to keep it as a boxing match rather than a brawl. He could have brought it to a brawl and ended it that way, but he just wanted to display his boxing and cruise.
Right. I mean, that was my take on it, and I just wonder if it was intentional. I mean, you know, we'll never know, but and then the opponent, I think, and to be fair to Plant, the opponent, you know, when a pro fighter doesn't want to get knocked out, they're hard to knock out because
Right.
he really wasn't, his opponent wasn't committing much, but still think that those are the kind of opponents that Plant needs to knock out if he's going to be a serious contender, I think.
You got it. And over in the United Kingdom, we had a big one that we advertised on our website. Gavin McDonald is no longer undefeated. He was 16-0-2 going into this one. He comes down to 16-1-2. And the vacant WBC World Super Bantamweight title goes to Ray Vargas, who improves to 29-0 with a majority decision win there at the Super Bantamweight main event there in Yorkshire. The lightweights in the co-main event, Luke Campbell improves to 16-1 over Jairo Lopez, falls to 21-7. And the WBC Silver Lightweight title goes to Campbell. Also, Tommy Coyle improves to 23-4 over Rakeem Noble with a TKO. By the way, Luke got the TKO to get the belt too in the lightweight fight. But Rakeem Noble falls to 11-2. His TKO, and thank you, Boxrec, for not telling us what round. That's awesome.
You know, I told Boxrec the other day, like, you have to, like, sign into them now, because I think it says something like, if you sign into them, you can find out, like, the rounds and the weights.
Oh,
and it's free. I didn't get a chance to do it, but I was like, maybe I'll do that.
Then we also had the rest of those fights in Birmingham, Alabama. Jarrett Hurd at super welterweight improves to 20-0 over Tony Harrison, who falls to 24-2 for the.
That was interesting. How Hurd came back in that fight. He never gave up.
And I kept thinking when I was watching this fight at the beginning, what the hell does SWFT means? And then, of course, it dawned on me: the lightning bolt is an eye. Swift. It's supposed to mean swift, so yeah, that one went right over my head for a little while. But creative tattoo there, and Jarrett Hurd wears it well. He had a great performance there. I kind of saw only the tail end of it, but then we had.
Well, yeah, he was way behind, Rich. I had Harrison pitching a shutout for the first half, and Hurd was looking. And Hurd had never lost. He's still undefeated, but he had a look in the corner that didn't look good. But I know his corner kept him focused. Said, just keep going, and we finally wore him down.
And then Deontay did his best impression of the same thing later on. At a little heavier weight. But probably the knockout of the night was Dominic Breazeale throwing Iswagbe Ugono right through the damn ropes. And to his first loss, falls to 17-1 with a KO. Only KO of the night except for at heavyweight earlier, 25-1 now. Iago Kalades KO'd Byron Pauly, who falls to 30 wins, 20 losses, and 1 draw with the knockout. That was earlier in the night. I don't even think they showed any clips of that one. But, yep, Ugono went Gono through the ropes. Not quite as bad as Bernard Hopkins in his last fight, but bad stuff. Hate to see that, but sometimes it provides a little more excitement. Also, BJ Flores moving to heavyweight out there in Phoenix, Arizona. Got a TKO over Jeremy Bates, so he's back in the winning column. Moves up to 33-3-1. Bates falls to 26-19-1, and BJ gets the vacant WBA NABA heavyweight title in that one. And then the main event, believe it or not, was middleweights. Kind of a mismatch here. Andrew Hernandez, 17-5-1, got the vacant. Get ready for it. WBA, NABA, USA middleweight title. And he got the win over Sujwola Ade Shabazz, who's only 6-2. So I don't know how he got that title shot, but I think luck might have had something to do with that one. Lucky guy. Better lucky than good, some people say. Not me. I like to be both. A little of both. Alright, and our former guest of ours out in Minnesota got another win. Joey Abel, speaking of 33 wins, moves up to 33 himself with 9 losses. He beat Raymond Ochieng, who falls to 26-21 with 3 draws, and that was a TKO. Again, thanks to BoxRec, we don't know what round. But that's about it for last week's boxing matches. Now we got to talk about what's coming up. And we got to wait for BoxRec on that, too. Come on, BoxRec.
Tony, have you checked out All Access for the Thurman Garcia fight?
I have not, unfortunately. This is all I've been doing. But guys, before I forget, I got some bad news for you. I found out this past Monday that Matt's flight got canceled for tomorrow night.
Aww.
Oh, bummer! Ah, what happened?
Well, here's what happened, because, and I think what hurt him. See, he's not a Philadelphia cop. He has worked in Philadelphia before, but then he transferred. Now he's in the suburbs. Trying to get on the show a couple years ago before he started training with me. He tried to get on the show, and it didn't work out. And so this year, he put his name in early, and told me he was doing all the training and all this and that. But see, it's normally police versus firefighters, and they only had a couple people. They only had a total of 4 people over 200 pounds register. Almost everybody else was between 165 and 175. Matt's about 200 to 205. So obviously you can't get him down to 175, even if you had a month to cut him. It's not going to work. He's not going to get that low. And the two guys that were at 200 each, two were Philly cops, two were Philly firefighters. And here's the magic word, Philly. So they got the precedent over the outsider, basically. And I was, pretty upset because we worked really hard. We worked really hard. He was really improving. And I'll tell you, the other night, he had come to the LA Fitness for my workout. And, he got his free pass and probably going to sign up, so we can use that, maybe some cardio or do some weights and stuff. And, we went over again what he was doing right and wrong with his body punches. And I put that chest protector back on, and I thought, damn near, I used the Ray Mercer line. So this boy better stop or I shit my pants. Because he was really digging into him good. He was really doing good. So it's a shame. I think he is still going tomorrow night. I'm not. I was going to take the day off of work tomorrow, using, one of my 24 days this year. But I decided not to because I've spent a whole hour and a half of my vacation time so far this year. And, so I don't want to use too much of it, of course. But he was like, hey, you still want to go to the fight? I'm like, you know what? I probably shouldn't because you guys, knowing me as long as you have, sometimes my mouth takes control of me. And if one of those gives a very subpar effort, I'm going to have a tendency to, say that was poor matchmaking. Like, that was kind of embarrassing. That was poor matchmaking. I got a guy that's professionally trained that would give you a much better show. So, things are great tomorrow night, but just in the event that they're not, maybe it's good that I'm just going to stay home and relax.
Are you going to turn into Teddy Atlas on a bad night? Is that what you're saying? I believe it. I can see it now. Red-faced Tony.
Yeah.
The tornado comes out.
It happens. So let's and I want to talk about tornadoes too before I go into the fights this weekend. Your boy the tornado nearly and I actually used the expression wrong last night. I said I nearly bit the farm. My friend's wife said, "Did you mean bought the farm?" I said bought the farm. It's just, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But there was almost no more tornado.
That's funny.
Would you guys like to know what nearly caused my demise?
A tornado.
All right, let's hear.
Right?
I'm on my way up to Lock Haven for the annual boxing show. And thankfully, if my dad didn't go and wasn't driving, I'm a goner. Because I don't have the patience to drive when the weather's good. So, we're about to get on that 100-mile stretch of Route 80 towards Lock Haven. And we said, you know what, let's stop and grab a bite to eat. So we stopped to get a bite to eat. And just as we're stop at the one Arby's, Mom was in the car. Her phone is synced to the car, so it goes over the steering wheel. My phone starts beeping. Her phone's beeping over the speakers. Tornado warnings. I'm like, you gotta be shitting me. But we're a little bit north of where we were. And a tornado watch is when they have the conditions that can spawn tornadoes. The tornado warning is one's been sighted. We're like, well, let's keep going. It's a little bit north of us anyway. We hit 3 stretches on Route 80 because we started driving in. It was like, we're going west, it's coming east. And we had 3 stretches where you couldn't see more than 10 yards in front of you. All you could see the other cars' flashers. Like, if my dad wasn't driving, I'm a goner. But I said, you know what, that would have been the perfect way for me to go. How'd the tornado die? He died in a tornado.
You'll see the headline in the paper, man with huge tornado tattoo dies in tornado.
I made it my friends last night. I was talking to them about it when I was biting the farm and buying the farm and all that. And I was like, I was thinking, and my friend's wife goes, "That'd be so cool to see you in a tornado in your outfit." I said, "Oh, even better idea." I said, because, 27, whatever. I said, if I run into bad weather and they're calling for tornadoes and I see one and everybody's running downstairs, I'm running towards it. I'm just like, fuck it. It's a way for me to go. It's meant to be. And then someone else like, no, you got to be in your outfit when you do that. I'm like, oh, even better. We were in the house and there's a tornado coming. Oh my God, it's bearing right down on us. Everybody running down to the basement. I'm running upstairs. Where are you going? I'm like, I got to put the outfit on. It's the way for me to go.
I got a better one for you than Bit the Farm. My girlfriend is not blonde, but she came up with this one the other day. She said, you're sweating like a band sheep. Because she confused screaming like a banshee with sweating like a band sheep.
I like it.
I was like, what is a band sheep? That's what I want to know. You gotta be kidding me. Sweating like a band sheep. Does that mean the sheep is in a band? Or does that mean the sheep is banned from something?
Yeah, the sheep is, prohibited from, I just when the sheep is prohibited from going somewhere, whether it's off or off the farm or whatever, he tends to sweat.
Anyway, boxing matches.
If she stays with you, Rich, her vocabulary will improve.
Let's hope so.
You heard it here first.
Let's hope so. That's not a blondism, folks. She is a brunette. Anyway, tonight in Tokyo, which means yesterday in Tokyo, we have the results from the WBC World Bantamweight title being on the line here. Shinsuke Yamanaka stays undefeated, moves to 27-0-2 over Carlos Carlson. He's got a unique name. He's goes down to 22-2 there. And then, obviously, it's just happened, so there's no actual mention of how this fight ended. Unanimous decision, TK, or whatever. But there was a super featherweight co-main event, and the Japanese super featherweight title was on the line. And it looks like Kenichi Ogawa improves to 21-1, while Satoru Sugita falls to 12-4-1. And then we had Hawaiian Punch. Brian Valoria got another win at super flyweight. He goes to 37-5-0. And he fought Ruben Montoya, who falls to 14-5-1. And then we go right to Saturday. We got a big one on Saturday in Germany. Just waiting on my slow-ass computer, as usual. But, Timo Schwarzkopf over there in Germany at super lightweight is in the main event. He's 16-1, fighting Artem Haroyan, who is 13-0. And then we got a super featherweight for the WBC Youth Female Super Featherweight title. Nina Meinke, 4-0, fighting Hasna Tukic, who is 9-5. And let's see what else we got going on. Another one in Germany, in Brandenburg on Saturday. The main event is middleweights Denny Lehman, who is 12-5-2, fighting Giuseppe Lori, who has 55 wins, 19 losses, and no draws. No draws. How do you have that many fights without a single draw? I don't know. The other guy's got 2, and he's only got like 1/3 of your fights, if even that. Anyway, Giuseppe has only won 2 out of his last 6 fights, so he might need some good luck to get through this one. Might. Let's see. We will see on that one. Alright, what else we got on Saturday? There are a lot of TBAs in action over in Berlin, Germany on Saturday. Robert Mace, M-A-E-S-S, is 17-0 fighting TBA. And Jan Meiser is middleweight, who is 12-0-1 fighting TBA. Let's see what else.
I wonder who's going to get the call. What quality of opponent to fight these undefeated guys,
Right? Well, it's,
You don't think they'll just be fillers, do you? A little padding on the record? No, that doesn't happen in boxing, does it? No.
And holy crap! I mean, this is matchmaker's dream right here in Mexico on Saturday. Light flyweights, Naoko Shibata, 16-3-1, fighting Alondra Garcia for the IBF World Female Light Flyweight title. And Shibata, I should say, 16-3-1. Guess what Garcia's record is? 16-3-1. You're gonna see that every day. Only fight on the card.
Record of 32-6-2.
Only fight on the card too. And then Mexico just lets us down again. Not only because they won't pay for the wall, but also because they have this fight next. Bantamweights: Yasmin Rivas, 35-10-1, fighting Nasli Maldonado, 5-5. That's got to be the mismatch of the week right there, for sure. Although I would be surprised if I find a worse one. All right. Over in Poland, we got Maciusz Masternak at cruiserweight, 37-4 in the main event against Alexander Kubik, who is 9-2. It's kind of a mismatch, but not too bad. At least the other guy's got a pretty decent winning record. And then in Puerto Rico, we got a couple WBC belts on the line. At super featherweight in the main event there. The rest of the card is, no surprise, TBAs. But the main event, Alberto Mercado, 13-0-1, fighting Jason Velez, who's 23-4-1, for the WBC Latino super featherweight title and the WBC Feaker Box super featherweight title. And, we're talking a lot about Russia before we got on the line here. I hope the NSA is not listening. We'll be all over CNN for talking to people in Russia, talking about Russians. At lightweights, main event there, we've got WBO Intercontinental Lightweight title on the line between Roman Andreev, who's 18-0, and Abraham Duendepo, who is 15-3. And then a whole bunch of other Russians on that card, believe it or not. But nothing spectacular as far as records go. And let's see, we're still on Saturday. Let's see what else we got on Box Rec here. Oh, the big one, David Haye versus Tony Bellew. Now, I don't know about you guys, but in the United States, if one boxer threatens to hospitalize the other, do you think it would be a big deal?
No.
Well, over in the UK, they're having a shit fit over this. Talking about suspending David Haye's license and all this other bullshit for telling Tony Bellew he's going to hospitalize him.
Ridiculous.
It's like, do they know about free
suspend
speech?
it before the fight and call the fight off because of trash talk? Wow. That is politeness.
Well, they're still obviously going to have the
polite
fight.
Society.
But Tony Bellew, is, I think Tony likes to call him Pretty Ricky Conlon.
Yep,
He's 28-2-1, fighting David Haye, who's 28-2, and actually Bobby Lashley, who we talked about earlier, said David Haye would be on his list too of guys he'd want to fight. Also, Paulie Malignaggi said he was going to retire, but obviously he is not. He's fighting on this one. He's 36-7, fighting for a title too. So WBC International Welterweight title could be his if he beats Sam Eggington, who's 19-3. And WBC Silver Super Lightweight title is on the line as well. O'Hara Davies, 14-0, fighting Derry Matthews, who's 38-11-2. And if that ain't enough for you UK fans, we also have Lee Selby in action. He is 23-1 at featherweight, fighting Andoni Gago, who is 16-2-2. But getting back to this whole issue of these threats to hospitalize the guy, you're talking about the same country where in Parliament they were talking about Donald Trump coming to the country, and just about everybody who stood up had to mention exactly what Donald Trump said about grabbing women by the pussy.
Oh, great.
And I swear to God, I was on CNN, and they just, like, every single person, man and woman, got up and said the words out loud in Parliament. But no, David Haye can't tell Tony Bellew that he's going to hospitalize him. That's not fair. It's funny.
You're right, it's not.
Pretty funny. Anyway. Jesus, fight of the week, also in the United Kingdom. Ben Jones, 22-5-1, fighting Jesus H. Christ. No, Jesus Arevalo, who is 22-1-1 for the vacant WBC International Silver Featherweight title. And yeah, that's Jesus is going to get a title if he wins. It's a good one. Bobby Gunn Jr. also on that card over in the UK, crossing the pond for a fight. He's still undefeated, 8-0, fighting the very formidable and always dangerous at last second notice, TBA. Watch out, Bobby Gunn Jr. Oh shit, I definitely had to change my mismatch of the week. Messed it up. Okay, we got another one from the UK. They build us up and then they let us down here. We got two in a row mismatches of the week. Super featherweight and super bantamweight. Super featherweights, Thomas Patrick Ward. He is 19-0, fighting Simas Volosinas, who is got 7 wins to go with 55 losses. Good luck.
Rich, you know what we need? We need follow-ups on these mismatches because we announce them, but we don't cover the results.
Yeah.
And I wonder how long that's going to go.
Yeah. Well, we're really going to have to click on
that. Your assignment, sir. I'm not telling you how to do your job.
Assignment America, like America's Funniest Home Videos, huh? Assignment America. Predict the round and result. Okay. Super bantamweights. We're not done yet with the mismatches. Martin Ward, he's coming in 24-3-1 is his record at super bantamweight. He's fighting Demetrius Gutmans. Gutmans has a record of 4-13-1.
Well, hopefully that'll make it to YouTube. Okay. So that, sir, is your assignment for the week. Oh,
and wow. I got our former guests on the big card of the week in Brooklyn, New York. Of course, that's main event. There is a couple undefeated guys who come to battle every time they step into the ring. Welterweights Danny Garcia and Keith Thurman. This is really kind of the last fight they can make with these guys in the mix here at PBC. They do have a lot of fighters under contract, but they kind of put all the fights together they could put together without putting these two against each other until now. So somebody's always got to go. Danny comes in with 33 wins to go with no losses, no draws, and Thurman comes in at 27-0. Both of them have considerable power. You might have to say Keith has more power, but you could also say Danny has better technique. But 2 titles on the line, WBC World Welterweight title and the WBA Super World Welterweight title, because they're super, and it should be a barn burner. I'm really looking forward to that one. This one, for some reason, is like, it's USA, CBS, it's on CBS, and it's also affiliated with Showtime somehow. I don't know how they did that, but Showtime's involved, and it's going to be on CBS. Promoted by DeBella Entertainment there. Big guy in New York. And the co-main event's pretty decent too, super welterweights. Erickson Lubin, 17-0, fighting Jorge Cota, who's 25-1. And then, as I said, our former guest here is on tap for a featherweight fight. Heather Hardy, 18-0, fighting Edina Kiss, who is 13-2. And she got a title that she could get in this one, WBC International Female Featherweight title. In the aforementioned earlier in the show, Chad Dawson, also on this card. He has lost 3 out of his last 6, and he is 34-4, fighting Andrzej, whatever you want to call him, Fonfara. I believe some people pronounce it Andrew, and I don't know how that works, but it's spelled Andrzej.
And you know what's interesting about that? Now you're looking at a crossroads fight here, because you have Dawson. As you said, he lost 3 out of 6. Dawson hasn't been the same since Andre Ward really pasted him a couple years ago. So now you have Fonfara, who had that very competitive loss to Adonis Stevenson, but then he got blown out by Joe Smith in 1 round. So now it's like, somebody everybody's got to save their career here. Can Dawson rebound? He's the more skilled fighter. Naturally, he's the better technician. He's the southpaw. Or then you got Famfara, who is a rougher fighter. A strong guy, a physical puncher. But he's coming off a 1-round knockout loss, a pretty devastating knockout loss. It's a big-time crossroads fight. Like after this, the loser really has a tough hole to dig himself out of, where the winner, salvages himself for another payday.
All right.
Yeah.
And there's a whole couple, 3 or 4 here. Well, three more fights worth mentioning. Super lightweights Mario Barrios, undefeated at 17-0, fighting Yardley Suarez, who has 20 wins, 6 losses. And we got featherweights Ricky Lopez, 17-4, fighting Pablo Cruz, who's 14-1. And first fight of the night, actually, is pretty interesting. Sergey Lipinets at welterweight, 11-0, fighting Clarence Booth, who's 14-2. But the biggest fight here, I think, is going to be the main event. I really am looking forward to what happens there between Danny Garcia and Keith Thurman. It's your classic boxer versus boxer.
I told Tom I was going to try to get a report out, but I was in Lock Haven all last weekend, and then obviously coming home, still training with Matt until his fight got postponed. I just unfortunately never really had a chance, but this is what I'd like to give you. My verbal breakdown of the fight. I know we talked a little bit about this last week, and I said, let's go over, the pros and cons like I always do. We got 2 undefeated fighters, both, world champions, both world-class world champions. These are guys that, are like the top of the mountain. Okay?
Cream of the crop, buddy. Top of the food chain.
The cream of the crop, rise to the top. So, I would say your advantages for Thurman is going to be his natural size. He's a naturally bigger fighter. He's always been at 147. Garcia came up from 140. His natural power. So you heard the 2 things I just said there, the word natural. Natural size, natural power. Thurman is a natural puncher. And you go to Garcia, I think in Garcia, you're going to see the advantages in his versatility, where he can box a little bit more, he's a little bit faster. So I'm going to give the advantage in speed to Garcia. Now, you go to your disadvantages. I'm going to say the one thing about Garcia has a tendency, a lot of times, he'll fade in a fight. He faded against Zab Judah. He faded against Lamont Peterson. He struggled at the end of those fights. He got hit with some pretty good shots. The other problem with Garcia, and I think you're going to see this with both guys are relatively easy to hit. So, as they would say in football, it's going to be defensive struggle where the defenses are struggling. It's going to be an offensive fight.
Yes.
Now, that could favor Keith Thurman being the bigger puncher and the bigger guy. But at the same time, Garcia is a tremendous counterpuncher. So the more offense you have out there, you have the more chances for counterpunches. Garcia knocked out Amir Khan with the counter left hook. The second fight when he knocked out Eric Morales, again, was a counter left hook. So, once again, that goes back to Garcia's versatility. Your issues with Keith Thurman. Thurman has a weakness to the body. The fight against Luis Collazo, he was hurt bad with a body shot. Once again, he's another fighter that's easy to hit, and I think sometimes Thurman gets a little bit one-dimensional. Not as versatile as Garcia is. What do they have to do to win the fight? Well, I would say Garcia has to use his angles. He's got to use his boxing IQ in there, and he can't get caught up, in, as Dr. Cox would say, a pissing contest. He cannot stand toe-to-toe with the bigger guy. He's got to hit, be in front of him, hit him again, and then make Thurman force himself into a mistake. win the fight, cannot let Garcia get an early lead because Garcia knows, what to do to survive down the stretch. Thurman's got to get after the early lead and then force Garcia to have to fight late. Now you put me on the spot. Obviously, I would say I'm a fan of both fighters. We've had the chance to interview both fighters. I have a tremendous amount of respect for both of them. And it's one of those fights that there's sometimes when I do a prediction on a fight, I can honestly say I have a clear vision in my head. It's not always right, but I have a clear vision in my head. This is one of those fights that I have two visions. I have the one vision of, a good fight early, and Thurman's superior size, superior strength, superior punching power, wearing Garcia down as the fight goes on, maybe a stoppage around the 11th round. The other one I see, Thurman coming straight in, Garcia using his jab, setting up his counter punchers, setting up his counter left hook, and then working the body. Garcia is going to work the body, but he can't do it standing right in front of Thurman. Thurman comes in, he's got to step to the side and run Thurman into the body punches, just like something I was working on Matt with the other night. If he does that, I can see him hurting Thurman to the body and Garcia ending the fight between 8 and 9 rounds. So, I think what the best thing to do on this one is get your popcorn, sit back, and enjoy the two best welterweights in the world.
I think it's going to come down to an old song. It's not so old, but funny old song. The chorus goes, "I wish I was a little bit taller."
Yeah.
And that's going to be what Thurman's singing, because I really think Garcia is going to do what Teddy Atlas always likes to say, describe as fighting tall. He's going to go in there and fight with that little bit extra height, and he's going to just blast Thurman right down the middle every time he tries to corkscrew an uppercut or a hook, left or right, doesn't matter. Garcia's going to take advantage of that height and reach, and he is just going to punish him with straight punches right down the middle, right to the head. And every time I think of this matchup, I think it was Robert Guerrero who fought Thurman. Might be wrong about that one, but after the fight, Guerrero, his next interview, he had raccoon eyes. So I think Garcia is going to do a repeat of that. He's going to get him ready for Halloween early. This is going to go as a raccoon again. Because I really do like Thurman's power, but a guy like Garcia just cannot be fooled enough to stay in his range. He's a way better boxer than that, and I think he can use his reach effectively, especially his jab. But the 1-2s are going to be the big key. If he can land his 1-2s early in the fight and keep Thurman from getting in close enough, we're going to see Garcia kind of cruise in this one, I believe. But if the raccoon decides to be wily and move around a lot and sneak in close, yeah, you never know. Thurman does have a shot, for sure. But do have a lot more to cover. Covered a lot of boxing there. Of course, we got to cover a lot of MMA. So let me check my big news of the week, see if I got any other boxing stuff to mention. News of the week. Oh, before we go to mixed martial arts, the big wrestling story of the week is about a girl named Mac in Texas. And if you haven't figured it out yet, the girl named Mac is trying to be a boy named Mac and is throwing our show into the disgusting area of having to talk about transgender competition in combat sports again. We thought we had it all out of the way with Fallon Fox there, but now we have to talk about a guy named, well, a guy, I guess you have to say now, named Mac Beggs, who won the girls' wrestling competition, Texas State girls' wrestling competition. I think this is college. Yeah, at the collegiate level, it says. So, I've got the article in front of me about it. Of course, it's somebody who is dead set against all transgender stuff, and mostly in this case because of the fact that when it's a girl who is transitioning to a guy, the primary treatment is testosterone. So obviously it's going to give the competitor an unfair advantage, a girl taking testosterone to become a boy, wrestling with females to get the title. So
USADA just let that happen then. She gets a pass from he, she, it, whatever you want to call it, gets a pass from USADA.
Therapeutic use exemption, and Donald Trump has not been able to be reached for comment on this one, but he said leave it up to the states. And Texas chose to recognize this girl as a female. So, Mac is a girl. How would you like to be a girl named Mac? My question is, does the parents name her that before she decided she wanted to be a boy? That's not answered in this article. That's my pressing question of the week. If somebody knows, email me.
And I feel sorry for the girls that had to compete against her.
Yeah, it's just unbelievable.
I mean, if I was the father of a girl like that, yeah, I'd would not be too happy.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I don't really have a big position on this. Every time I think about this issue, I think about my former co-host and friend, Holly Yargo. Hella Holly, we used to call her. And she posted on Facebook one day a little pun, and it says, "Why can't we all potty like it's 1999? Because the big thing has been about the bathrooms, Do we have transgender bathrooms for transitioning females and transitioning males in addition to the regular bathrooms? Or do we just, throw these people in with each other? Or do we make it mandatory that you have to have the sex on your birth certificate be your bathroom of choice? I don't know. Leave it for somebody else to figure out, because I don't want anything to do with it. But we have to talk about it because it's been all over the news. So, Mac, I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what you're dealing with, but maybe you need, if you're going to try to be a man, to compete with the men. Okay? You want to be treated like one? Go compete with them. That's all I got to say. It's my soapbox issue of the week there. And we're going to have a lot of Muslim Trump jokes tonight, because there's another story. Muhammad Ali's son, who is Muhammad Ali Jr., and his mother, who is got a different name, Khalila Camacho Ali, were stopped on February 7th in Fort Lauderdale on their way back from Jamaica. And the mother was let go because she had a picture of herself and the former champ, the greatest of all time, who just died, and they let her go. But Muhammad Ali Jr. was not so lucky. He was detained about 2 hours. And, of course, the inference is that because of his name and his Muslim faith, they were discriminated against. So, of course, they're talking about a lawsuit in the works. And, I don't think any of them specifically mentioned Trump in their quotes. But this article says, from the way they were treated, from what was said to them, they can come up with no other rational explanation, except they fell into a profiling program run by Customs, which is designed to obtain information from anyone who says they're a Muslim. It's quite clear that what triggered his detention was his Arabic name and his religion. But basically, Customs officer says it wasn't because he's a Muslim and it wasn't because of his Arabic-sounding name. But they won't say what it was about. The agency had a statement about it. It said that vigilance, actually it says that its officers process more than 1.2 million international travelers daily with, quote, vigilance and in accordance with the law, unquote. Said it does not discriminate based on religion, race, ethnicity, or sexual orientation. It's also basically saying that they've been frequent global travelers in the past without this issue, and basically the lawyer is already saying this has never happened to them before. They're asked specifically about their Arabic names, where they got their names from, and it's kind of ironic that he let the mother go just because he had a picture, but the son didn't have any pictures in his present or on his person, so they didn't let him go right away. Kind of crazy. But they were also asked whether they were Muslim, and the lawyer does mention Trump. Says it doesn't take much to connect those dots to what Trump is doing. But yeah, crazy stuff.
Yeah.
They both live in Florida as well, and they have not traveled abroad since. They are considering filing a federal lawsuit. And if they file it with the Ninth Circuit, they might win, right?
And his son never followed in his father's footsteps.
No, I guess not.
Well, those would be some big shoes to step into, wouldn't they?
Not only that,
Yeah.
but you have the biggest example of the damage boxing does in the retired. After he retired, you have to be able to recognize at a certain age that this might not be the best decision for me to follow that act. But yeah, that's unfortunate that he got held back there. But well, of course, we're going to have to visit this subject again when we talk about the co-main event Saturday night in the UFC. But before we get to that one, we got to talk about the main event and this whole Conor McGregor thing. And I'm not talking about just the Mayweather deal, but Conor McGregor's personality itself, I think, is creating some bad mojo, we'll say, in the UFC. Earlier this month, UFC President Dana White was speaking in a radio interview about UFC welterweight champion Tyron Woodley, who will be fighting Stephen Wonderboy Thompson this Saturday night in their big anticipated rematch there. Woodley told Ariel Helwani on Monday's edition of the MMA Hour that White called him about what he said on the show, because White referred to him as a, quote, drama queen, unquote. Woodley said he didn't take it personally and seemed to laugh it off, but he also had a little jab back. And he said, how is Dana White going to call me a drama queen? He's the biggest drama queen. I learned from the best. And he actually thought it was funny. And he added that, I just think that we've seen Dana, if you get Dana mad, he gets really mad. And then really quickly, I think he's mad at so many people, I think he forgets he's mad at you. And he almost just wipes it from his memory. I thought it was actually kind of funny when he called me a drama queen. And that's not the worst of it. White said, Dana said, he's a smart guy, he's a good-looking kid, he's explosive, he's got knockout power, but he's a bit of a drama queen. So that's the exact quote in context.
Woodley can't catch a break. He really can't.
And what's worse about this situation is that White is making these remarks about Woodley being a drama queen in response to Woodley's earlier remarks insinuating that the UFC is a little racist toward him. So White furthered his comments by saying that's not what people want to hear. People don't want to hear that. And then what he does is he'll start fighting and arguing with people on social media. Then he wonders why when we show up at a press conference, the whole crowd is booing him. They're not booing him because he's black. There's tons of black guys fighting in the UFC, you know what I mean? And White said that Woodley should be, here's the kicker, more like lightweight champion Conor McGregor, who White said is willing to fight anybody at any time. Which does not make sense because he's been saying for the last few months that he's not going to fight in the UFC next. He's going to fight in a boxing ring. So it sounds like he's willing to fight Floyd Mayweather at any time, not anybody else.
And Woodley has a point about that, though. When you think about it, I mean, McGregor picks his opponents. I know he's a much bigger draw, but then you look at Michael Bisping. And now look who's going to fight Bisping. I don't want to get ahead of things, but Woodley has a point in some ways. I mean, I feel some sympathy for him.
Yes, sir. Woodley also said, I didn't take it personally. I think what he was saying is that he feels as if some of the treatment that I was talking about and some of the buzz, he thinks that if I were more like Conor, I would be a bigger star. And here's my favorite part of the quote. Woodley added, well, guess what? I will never be anything like Conor. So if that's what it takes to be a star, then I will never be a star. You can't tell a man to be like another man. That's just not who I am. I just will never be it. And Woodley also said that he's been more open about what he feels is racism in the sport lately because he was hoping for a change in how things were. And of course, because he spoke out, the UFC did reach out to him about things he said on ESPN and other places, and they've taken measures to improve his treatment. And he said that was the goal. So, you know, in one way, he decided to be like McGregor and just be loudmouthed about it. You get a double-edged sword here because, in one sense, the UFC is trying to get people to be more like Conor, but in the other sense, it'd be their worst nightmare if everybody was like Conor.
Well, and I like Woodley's answer to that. You got to be you. Come on, you can't be anyone else.
Right.
He's a grown man. He's got his personality. That's crazy.
And the other person who's been very outspoken about Conor McGregor is the guy that might end up fighting him sooner than anyone else, and that is Khabib Nurmagomedov, who has obviously a big test to face before he can fight Conor, if he fights Conor, but he's basically saying the UFC should market him as the first Muslim champion and forget about Conor.
Wow.
But it's interesting. Khabib's father, as well, too, has been reportedly been denied a U.S. visa. But he's never quartered his son in any of the UFC fights. But anyway. Let's see what else we got.
You know, Khabib has a perfect symmetry in his record. He's 24-0, 8 wins by knockout, 8 wins by submission, and 8 wins by decision. How about that?
Beautiful. Before we get to the upcoming fights, I do want to mention a couple other stories. Filthy Tom Lawler seems to have an apropos name now that he's been busted for a first-time offense. And this is kind of an iffy one. Osterine now is the latest thing that people are getting popped for. And they admit, which is pretty fucked up to me, the USADA has given people exemptions because it has been found in supplements. But when they give people exemptions, they still have to suspend them for a certain amount of time. So even though these guys are sort of innocent because it's not even listed on the label and they have to end up getting the shit tested to even get an exemption, now filthy Tom Lawler looks like a cheater when he probably just took a supplement that wasn't responsible enough to put this shit on the label. And if you're going to ban it, you know, it should be something that fighters are able to actually find on the label. Yeah, it's just ridiculous. But like a smart fighter would do, Lawler has turned his attention to a second career, pro wrestling. So we'll see what kind of character he comes up with.
Yeah, he may have the personality for that.
He's got the nickname.
Yeah.
Filthy. Anyway, so that's that one. Let's see what else. We got UFC going to Asia. Trying to break into that market. I can get to that. Email's being slow. Okay. So yes, UFC is trying to go to Asia, and I'm trying to find the story about them going to Asia. Okay, oh, there we go. Alright. In addition to signing a new broadcast rights deal with Russian sports network Match TV, the UFC has announced its first event in Asia in well over a year. And that's not counting the canceled UFC Manila card. It's going to be a June fight night in Singapore. And 2 more events are being targeted for the continent later this year as well, with mainland China as a possibility. And interesting development over last Friday. We had, of course, a big Bellator event with I think it was just only 4 fights over there in Dublin. But it was a pretty decent main event. And I don't have the other guy's name right in front of me, but Liam McGeary looked pretty impressive after he had a little bit of a tough go of it early in the first round, but ended up coming back and just basically tenderizing his opponent. But there was a special guest in the audience, and they photographed him celebrating. It looked like he was making the "call me" sign in the picture, but it was Mike Goldberg, who just left the UFC, and I think we talked about it on the show after he left. His final show, they didn't do any kind of tribute to him or nothing, so obviously they might have been pretty pissed at him because he was thinking about going to another organization. Now it looks like he's still in talks with Bellator, but at the same time, Bellator has really got a solid broadcast team with Sean Grande and Jimmy Smith. But this article in Forbes here about it says Scott Coker ought to put Goldberg with Chael Sonnen, and that would be a good broadcast team. Which you might be right, but I don't know. Maybe behind the desk instead of play-by-play. But Mike Goldberg was in the audience there for Bellator and spotted in a picture. It was pretty funny. Also, Anthony Burchak is making the news for being in a precarious position with the UFC, whereas they're trying to cut certain fighters without making it publicly known. They're just kind of giving people the cold shoulder, even after a win. And Burchak won his last fight in the UFC and now finds himself in a situation where he hasn't been cut, but he also doesn't have a new deal. So his mission now, after suffering from a little bit of a depression and dealing with some issues about whether he's good enough, whether he should retire, whether he should do different things, he has thought it through and now has decided that he wants to do some things on his bucket list as far as traveling the world and fighting for different promotions. He's looking at Ryzen as an option. He's also looking at One FC over there in Asia, where the former Bellator fighter there, the wrestler, can't think of his name right now.
Ben Askren.
Ben Askren is sort of languishing over there, not making too many waves.
Good choice of words. That is a brilliant choice of words. Once again. Words to describe your vocabulary do not exist.
Yeah,
that's for a compliment.
He's being the big fish in the little pond over there, eating up all the
minnows. That is sad. That is really sad. I would love to see him in the big show. I mean, he's mopping the floor with those guys, and no one knows about it. May as well be doing wrestling in a high school auditorium. Sad.
Yep. So, first of all, we'll discuss tomorrow's fight card. Bellator MMA is going to be in Oklahoma, Thackerville, Oklahoma, at the WinStar Casino. And the main event there is the new featherweight title, inaugural bout here. Marlos Conan, 23-7, fighting Julia Budd, 9-2. And co-main event is pretty decent too. Kendall Grove back in action. He is 23-16, fighting Mike Rhodes, who's 10-4. Then we got Brandon Gertz coming in at 14-5, fighting Fernando Gonzalez, who's 25-14. We got Steve Garcia coming in at 7-1, fighting Joe Tamanglo, who is 23-7-1. And then seventh fight of the night is Tristan Thomason. He's 10-4, fighting Emmanuel Rivera. Sorry, Emmanuel. Tried to make you a girl there with your name. And great name for a fighter, Cody Pfister. He is 12-6-1, fighting Jonathan Gary, who's 12-7-2. And Justin Wren, also on the card in the fifth fight of the night. He is 12-2, fighting Roman Pizzolato, who is 9-6. But he's the only fighter on this card that does not have a Sherdog picture. So, Sherdog, if you're listening, you might want to correct that. He's in the big show now. Fourth fight of the night, Emily Ducote, 4-2, fighting Katie Collins, who's 6-1. We got third fight of the night, Rafael Lovato. He is 4-0, fighting Wayman Carter, who is 7-4. Then we got, no, she's not from Shawshank Redemption, Alexis Dufresne. She is not Andy Dufresne's daughter. She's 6-2, fighting Gabriel Holloway, who's 5-5. First fight of the night, Jason Witt, who's 7-3, fighting Justin Patterson, who's 8-1. So that's straight from Oklahoma tomorrow night. So now you can really confuse your friends and go, who do you think's gonna win, bud? Bud fighting in the main event there. Bud versus Conan. And she's not the Barbarian. I don't know. I'm waiting for UFC to come up. But of course, we know the main event of the UFC is going to be Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Tyron Woodley. And I actually did a preview and prediction for this one with a paid link in it, since I really didn't have anything else I wanted to write about at the time. So somebody wanted a paid link and an article, and I wrote about that. And predicted actually the co-main event too. But I had to put my psychic Tom Padgett hat on to do it, to figure out which way it's going to go. And I kept coming back to the fact that in the first fight, and obviously you can't predict every rematch on the first fight, but in the first fight, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson pretty much controlled 3 out of the 5 rounds. Got in trouble in 1. So obviously the adjustments that he has to make are pretty minimal. If Woodley doesn't advance his game tremendously, I think. And the one chance that Woodley had got him the 10-8 round. And instead of switching to a choke, if he had continued the grounded pound, he might have won that fight. But with a guy like Thompson, who primarily looks good when he uses a lot of kicks and keeps his distance, if he can really drill down on maintaining distance and not getting taken down and not getting in that ground and pound position, I believe he has the best chance to win this fight. And I believe that Woodley, of course, always has the puncher's chance in the knockout, any given Sunday type of ending. But you know, you look at a guy like Thompson, who just has, I think, a little bit better strategy, a little bit better movement around the cage. And if he adjusts just a little bit defensively too, you know, maybe more hands around the face area, even though that's kind of tough for a guy who does a lot of karate kicks. I just don't think Woodley can do it, you know, if Steven fights a smart fight. He'll have to make way more mistakes than he made in that first fight, or, you know, at least 2 or 3 more big mistakes.
Well, what is the rule in this that we've learned from boxing? That the first time around, you go with the guy with physicality. And I know I use those same 2 examples of Frazier, Ali, and Leonard and Duran.
Right.
And then in the rematch, the more technical guys should have the edge. Now, in MMA, and that formula doesn't always work in boxing, for sure. I'm sure both of you can come up with examples where it hasn't. But I like to base a lot on that. Now, MMA is a little different because you have so many other dimensions. But in this, a lot of times, it's the guy who came up short that can make more adjustments. Well, in this case, neither one of them did. So I agree with everything you said about that. I had Thompson winning rounds 2, 3, and 5. To me, I thought I just thought he did a little more. And of course, Woodley won round 1 and a 10-8 round in round 4. So I'm happy. I have no complaints about that decision. The wild card here is Woodley's wrestling. That's going to be the wild card. If the card stays on the feet, the fight stays on the feet, and if Wonder Boy can not throw lazy kicks, and he really looks like he was working on that, that would be his major adjustment. And if he can keep it standing, I would agree with you. He should. I don't think he'll stop Woodley, but I think he can get the decision. The one thing, if you've seen the countdown, Thompson's been doing a lot of weightlifting, trying to even up that strength differential. Well, I don't think you can do that in this short of a time period.
Well, it depends on what you're using it for. You know, if you're using it to try to pick a guy up and throw him, you know, and be aggressive and crazy, and, you know, head throws and stuff like that, if you're using it for leverage on the wrestling. But I think the best place that could benefit him is takedown defense. You know, when the guy comes screaming in for the double leg takedown, and you either put him in a whizzer or you get in a grappling game with him and pick him back up to your level, you know, with an underhook or an overhook or both. And I think that definitely could help him there because, like I said, you know, it was that one ground and pound situation where he got in the most trouble of the fight and could have been knocked out. So I've always thought, I think back since we talked with Rumble Johnson, I believe it was right before he left the UFC, he had started to talk about, we both started to realize that it was becoming more of a striker's game. And, you know, if you can counteract the wrestling with takedown defense and you're an excellent striker, you can dominate still to this day in MMA. And it's been a trend that really kind of took a long time to develop, but especially with a guy that has a unique karate style, unlike Lyoto Machida, who is almost purely karate and has used it with success and has paid for it in certain different circumstances. But Stephen Thompson is faster, he's quicker with his punches, he has a little bit of a dynamic, different style that a lot of people have a tough time catching up with, and he's evolving, he keeps evolving with it. So I think after this fight, he's going to work a lot on his takedown defense in the next one, and he's also going to try to throw more head kicks and leg kicks. I think are key to this one, because if you take away that front leg of Woodley, then he's not going to be able to strike on the feet, where he's going to have to strike to win the fight, and he's not going to be able to shoot in for the takedown a lot if he's got great takedown defense all of a sudden that he didn't have in the first fight. So I like Thompson.
Again, remember in that first fight, though, Thompson was a little gun shy with the kicks. I don't think he can afford that this time. He's got to do it smart, and I'm not saying it's easy. No. But remember what got him in trouble in the first round, that lazy kick. And Woodley did the thing that my dad did to me after 1 month of Taekwondo. And I wanted money to keep going, and Dad says, well, let's see what you learned. Next thing I know, I'm looking like Thompson did. Just Dad picked up my leg, and I'm on my back. You know? So we'll see. We'll see if he can adjust.
And then we have the co-main event, which could be a main event on most other cards. Khabib Nurmagomedov, 24-0, fighting Tony Ferguson, who's 22-3. Both of these guys are on tears. Of course, Nurmagomedov's on the bigger tear. He is undefeated for the bulk of his career, and just tremendous balance, like you said, 8 submissions, 8 knockouts, and 8 decisions. And the thing about the 8 decisions is that every single one of them were unanimous. So you cannot look past that. I think that is the number one key to this fight, because Ferguson not only has 3 losses, but all of his decisions are not unanimous that he won. So he's had some tough fights. He's had some close fights. He's had some rough fights in the house, the fighter house. He had a big blowout, if you remember that season, where a lot of people hated him at the beginning of his career because, he badmouthed some guy, got all kinds of drunk, and badmouthed some guy for not being around his kid, and just was completely asinine on camera in front of everybody in the house. And went into that last fight with everybody having all kinds of reasons to hate him, and he's persevered. And the thing I don't like about Tony's style, though, is he comes in with a lot of 1-2s. He doesn't bring his hands back to his face. Definitely not like Gavin Tucker, my new favorite fighter. And he takes a lot of chances. And you can do that against lesser-known fighters. Like one of the ones I always laugh about is that Japanese guy that he faced, who come in the whole time with his hands at his hips, like he was doing kata out there instead of actually fighting. And of course,
didn't work out too good, did it?
Ferguson ruined him. It was pretty ugly, but let me find that guy. Katsunori Kakuno. It took all of 4 minutes and 6 seconds for him to get knocked the fuck out. KTFO, officially marked on Sherdog. No, KO. It says on Sherdog from a punch.
I used to have a T-shirt that had those initials on it back in the early UFC. KTFO.
And Ferguson and Nurmagomedov have fought a lot of the same people. Ferguson lost to a guy that Nurmagomedov beat. So, you can do common opponent math all day, but the big thing that stands out to me is no losses on Nurmagomedov's record at all, and just total dominance. I mean, the kid wrestled bears when he was a kid, too. Can't forget that. Literally.
I wonder if he drank horse milk. Now, he's from Dagestan, not Kazakhstan. I wonder if they have that horse milk there. You remember how he was talking to Michael Johnson after dominating him in the first round, and he's yelling at Dana White, "Where's my title shot?"
Yes.
And he says, "You better finish this fight." And he says, "Yeah, no problem." And then he had Johnson in a horrible position, and he was just slapping him, saying, "You need to quit. You need to quit. I need this title shot. You need to quit." Yeah, I have to go with him. I mean, Tony Ferguson's an animal. I mean, the guy's looked just phenomenal in his last 5 fights. Phenomenal. Done everything you could ask of him. But I just think that Hurd's just on a different level, especially on the ground.
And you got to give it to him, too, because he's one of those fighters who's from a foreign country, has the foreign accent, but has decent command of the English language. And
yeah, really good. I
have heard a lot of Russian dialects are actually one of the simplest languages to learn. For some reason, Russian, a lot of people that I know, especially in the military schools, wanted to learn Russian for obvious reasons. I mean, look where we are now with Russia. But, I've heard that that's a very easy language to learn. So, for him to come over to English, it's got to be tougher. But he does, he's got a lot of thick accent when he talks, but he does seem to really understand the language well. And he trains here. He trains at Randy Couture's gym
AKA.
as well as out in California. So he gets around, he does a lot of stuff. And it was funny because I just watched one of the embedded episodes there leading up to the fight, and he did this skit with Crave, which is the parent company of Sherdog, and he had to predict the plot of romantic movies just based on the name and the picture. And just with his accent talking about it was pretty damn funny. You had to watch it. But in the clip on Embedded, he's actually watching himself in this interview that he didn't want to do. They even have a clip at the end where he says, "I don't like this." This is such a tough guy.
Then, did you see when he went out to Mike Tyson's house? Did you catch that one?
I did not catch that one. I'll have to watch that one.
Well, Tyson said no cameras, so they didn't get to go inside, but he got a signed glove which supposedly Mike Tyson doesn't do that for anyone.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, he's a big MMA fan, Tyson, especially, being friends with Dana White and getting all the perks of being on the inside there and getting the good seats.
And
buddy.
Keelan said that Tyson was always his idol when he was younger, so they got to meet.
Cool. We also have Rashad Evans back in action on this one. He is in the fight just under the co-main event against Daniel Kelly, who's 12-1. Kelly doesn't have a, dynamic technical style or anything, but he's got a good chin, number one, and he's a game fighter. And Rashad Evans is kind of his earlier career, so we'll have to see who comes out on top.
Yeah,
the up and comer or the old legend.
This is one of those loser leaves town on Rashad's move, but I think a setback for Rashad would pretty much finish him off.
And Rashad comes in at 19-5-1. Kelly comes in at 12-1. By the way, in the main event, Woodley comes in at 16-3-1. Thompson is 13-1-1. I believe I mentioned Nurmagomedov 24-0. Tony Ferguson 22-3. And fight before Evans and Kelly, we got Lando Venata 9-1 fighting David Timur, who is 5-1. But the one that I'm really looking forward to more than any other one on this card is Alistair Overeem, 41-15, fighting Mark Hunt, who's 12-10-1, and that is a very deceiving record because Mark Hunt is a beast, and depending on which Mark Hunt shows up and how juiced his opponent is, we may see him look a lot better than that record. So, Alistair Overeem, being one who's known to juice, we'll have to watch out for that because I think Mark Hunt is going to challenge Dana White to a fight to the death if he finds out his next opponent is juice. Especially seeing as he's suing the UFC over the deal with Brock Lesnar. So that to me is amazing as it is because, I mean, if Dana White and the Fertitas still own the UFC, I don't think you'd see Mark Hunt in any more fights until that lawsuit was resolved in the UFC's favor. If it was resolved in Mark Hunt's favor, he'd be blacklisted for life. But here he is in smack dab in the middle of this card against another guy who's famous for juicing in his career. Unbelievable. So we'll see how that one works out, but I bet USADA is camping outside Overeem's house to make sure that this doesn't have any controversy related to it. Seventh fight of the night.
Well, I don't think he's been popped in anything recently, has he?
Last thing I remember, he tried to say that he got steroids injected by accident because of a rib injury. But I think that was a couple years ago now.
Yeah, so I know after the Stipe fight, I know they were tested, and I don't think anything came up there, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. He couldn't be that stupid. I mean, come on, the way they're testing now, I mean, it's a witch hunt, so come on. I wouldn't think he'd be like that.
But we also have Marcin Tybura on the card. He's 14-2, fighting Luis Henrique Barbosa de Oliveira, who is 10-2. Got Mirsad Bektik coming in undefeated at 11-0, fighting Darren Elkins, who's 21-5. Lots of people with good records on here. Yuri Alcantara, 33-7, coming into this one against Luke Sanders, who's undefeated at 11-0. Daniel Spitz, 5-0, fighting Mark Godbeer, who is 11-3. Paul Craig, 9-0, and this is a funny one. I read an article this week, or at least a headline I saw, that says Paul Craig doesn't even like fighting, and he's fighting at UFC.
Yeah, he's the Scottish kung fu guy that used to be a school teacher. How's that for a strange resume?
Right.
He was very impressive in his debut, though. He was very impressive.
Paul Craig's got to fight Tyson, though, in his next fight. Tyson Pedro, who's 5-0. Also on the card, a female fight, Amanda Bobby Cooper. She's the second fight of the night. She's 2-2, fighting Cynthia Calvillo, who's 3-0. First fight of the night is Andre Sukamthath, who is 11-3, fighting Albert Morales, who's 6-1-1. I believe that is all we've got going on this weekend for big stuff. if you're listening and you're an amateur boxer, by the way, we've got the update from the Iceman today. His next amateur boxing reunion is going to be
I got that same update.
March 18th this year, and it's going to be in Harlem, New York, at Monique's Lounge, wherever that is. And he believes this is going to be the largest turnout of any of the previous 5 reunions. And if everybody was giving out autographs at these, I would go in a heartbeat. But I don't know what kind of chance we'd get to get a whole lot of stuff signed. But it does say that all media is welcome. Any media who wish to attend the event in Harlem, New York, are more than welcome to be part of the festivities. And I might be able to get Riddick Big Daddy Bo to sign my Mike Tyson glove if I'm lucky, if I get to go. But I don't know if I'll be able to afford to make that trip this year. It's pretty decent prospect of meeting a lot of famous fighters, though. And it's created some pretty decent moments. Last year, they've got a video here of Michael Nunn calling into the reunion in Las Vegas just to speak to a former opponent of his in 1986, Alex Ramos, who has had kind of a tumultuous retirement. Actually, I think he was in a coma there for a little while, dealing with a lot of cognitive issues, but he seems to be, or no, he had a stroke, I believe, but he's back in better health now. But Mike McCallum and Alex Ramos also met each other in the semifinals of the 1980 New York City Golden Gloves, and they got together in Vegas in 2014. Luis Ortiz and Lawrence Clay Bay came together in 2015 at Foxwoods, and they hadn't seen each other in 38 years. They didn't even know they fought against each other back in 1977 until just a few days before their reunion. So that was kind of interesting. So, also expected to be there, Junior Jones, Mark Breland, Marlon Starling, and Mark Johnson. So Irish Mickey Ward's been a past guest, Montel Griffin, Mike McCallum, Iran Barkley, Roy Jones Jr., another former guest of ours. I'd love to get an autograph of his. But yeah, if I had an airplane at my disposal, I would definitely do that. Someday we'll have the FNU jet. We'll just go wherever the FNU we want. That would be nice. Alright, so unless you guys got anything, I believe that is all I have for tonight. We are going to be posting a bunch of articles tonight. I have not done my posting for the day, so before we get the actual show posted, there should be a long list of new articles underneath it. But,
no, that's all I got. I'm just looking forward. Like I said, I'm disappointed about tomorrow night, with Matt's fight getting canceled. But hey, I'm happy that he's still going to keep training with me, and hopefully next year, and, we'll see. And, I'm just going to sit back Saturday night and enjoy a very good welterweight fight.
You know what they say about awaking a sleeping giant, right?
Very true.
So, hey, the more time that he has to hone his skills, maybe the better he'll be, hopefully. And he's in good hands, just like Allstate, right?
That's right. He's got a great trainer.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate that.
Hey, I love the videos, and I'm telling you, I learned something from you on that.
Good. More to come. And like I said, I got I don't know if I told you last week, but I got the notice from Amy that I think she sent it to me on Friday. She got her MRI results back, and she does have three ligaments damaged in her ankle and a hairline fracture, and so she's going to be in the boot. Yeah, she's going to be in the boot for about another 4 weeks at least.
Yeah.
Expecting to have her back until sometime mid-April probably. And I know she's really upset because with boxing for her, I know she's not going to compete. she's doing it, you know, 'cause she's really getting in a health kick now, and she gave up smoking, and you know, she's hitting the gym. She was hitting the gym constantly. Like she had one guy, she called that her swole mate because they were lifting partners, and this is a girl, 100 and some pounds, and she was lifting with guys. You know, and she was getting into running. She would go there and she would run, you know, on the treadmill, like a couple miles. Then she was coming to box with me. I was Coach Tornado, you know, and you know, so she's got to step back, but she's going to come back hungry. I know she is, and you know, training with her, you know, she's going to be like holding the tiger by the tail when she first tries to start. So I want to keep her a little on the, you know, keep it relaxed. You know, don't go crazy. Ease back into it.
Alrighty, well, I guess you got to recruit some new talent.
Yeah, I know. Well, I went over. I visited my last, you know, protege last night, but he was sleeping. You know, he's 7 weeks old now, so you know, talking to him. They sent me a picture the other day. He was wearing the little jumper I bought him that said Uncle Twin was a little champion, and I love the picture. Then I found out later that he shit all over it, and I'm like, thanks, kid. They said he had a blowout in it.
Oh, jeez. All right. Well, till next week, guys. Thanks for stopping by, and always great chatting with you.
Everyone enjoy the fights. We got a lot of them this weekend. Don't even know which ones I'm going to watch or where I'm watching. All I know is I'm watching.
Well, you know you're watching. That's a great philosophy.
Sure.
That's it, buddy. Yeah,
all right,
call me stupid, call me lazy, just don't call me the night of the fights. All right, guys. Next week.
Awesome.
All right. Absolutely. Have a good night, guys. All right, bye.
Adios.